Today we're going to be taking a first look and going on a first ride on a bike that at first looks pretty normal, but as you'll see, it has some tricks up its sleeve. So let's get into it. The bike I'm talking about is the Panorama Torngat Ti. This is a fat bike, as you can tell. It's a titanium frame, beautiful finish on it. Look at that right there. They actually had a steel version of this. I don't think they make it anymore. This has basically replaced it. And while it is very similar, there's some pretty cool stuff. So let's just jump right to the thing that makes this bike different, and it is right here. You can see this bottom bracket, although this is a fat bike, is narrower than normal. So it has these different spacers right here, and the idea behind this is that it is running the race face turbine cranks, and so it has the cinch system where you can swap out the spindle, or the part that goes between here and here, to a shorter length or a longer length, depending on what you need. So in this mode right here, it has the longer spindle, and the bike comes with both. It has the longer spindle on there, and this is the setup you want to use for these tires right here, these 27.5 by 4.5, and you know, anything like that. That setup works great for the winter, but if, like me, you don't really believe in N+1 and you want a bike you can ride all the year, you can swap out the spindle and have a narrower Q factor, or basically how far your feet are apart. And this gets it down to a 183 Q factor from a 205. 205 is pretty typical of fat bikes. But you get it down to a 183. That's still a little wider than a mountain bike. Most of those are low 170s, even some in the low or in the 160s. But 183, that's going to make a big difference. That's 20 millimeters. That's a pretty big difference. In that narrower configuration, you can still run a fat tire. You can still run a 27.5 by 4. Or you can run one of my favorite tire sizes, 29 by 3. I think that's really great because some people, their biggest complaint is, sure, I can swap these more mountain bike tires onto the fat bike, but it just still feels like a fat bike. With this narrower stance, you're going to feel more natural or more mountain bikey, and that might help you out on the trails. The reason you can't run both in the same configuration is because you'll get some chain rub. So it's necessary to create that longer spindle so that your chain line is longer and there's just more clearance back there in general. The whole point of running that narrower thing, like I said, is to make this feel more mountain bikey. And along with that, Panorama has not designed this around a 100 millimeter suspension fork, but a 120, which I think is a really good setup. What that's gonna end up doing is it's gonna give you a little bit higher stack, but it's going to slacken that head tube angle out a little bit, get that front tire out a little bit farther, and so that's just going to make it feel a little more aggressive for when you're riding on dirt trails. The carbon fork on the front right now is 120 millimeter adjusted, so it's a little bit higher than a lot of fat bike forks. You can see that nice little panorama there on the inside, but it does have 3-pack mounts. This bike, you know, is meant for exploring. That's one of Panorama's big things. So you've got the bolts up here, you've got 3 bolts right there, 2 right there, 2 underneath, or 3 underneath actually. You've got rack mounts on the back if you want to run a rack. Panorama's not a big brand by any means. They started in 2016, so they're pretty young. But their philosophy is to build bikes that are for adventuring. So whether that's bike packing or touring, on-road and off-road, you know, their bikes have been taken on some pretty crazy adventures over the years. And that's their focus, is to be more on what can I go do with this bike? How long can I be gone on it? They're also, like me, not big believers in N+1. They want a bike that's versatile, that you can change up depending on your needs, depending on the season, depending on where you're going. So I think that is awesome. That's something I always look for in bikes, because a bike is an investment. It's not cheap. Even the budget or entry-level stuff is pretty expensive. Yes, this is a titanium frame, so a lot of people might consider that more of a luxury, but it's almost given you 2 or 3 bikes in one. And to be honest, price-wise, it's not that bad. This is one spot where I think Panorama's done a good job. So they have used solid, reliable parts where that's what matters the most is reliability. So it's running the Mulefoot 80s, which are on, I don't know, 50-60% of bikes, fat bikes that come out. And then it's got 45 North, the Dillinger 5s, which are a good all-around tire. Some people might not be that happy with the Level Ts that are on it. I've run these for I don't even know how many years and never had problems. Yeah, they're not the most powerful, but I'm a big guy and they work just totally fine for me. As you can probably tell by the seat post, this frame might be a little small for me. It's a medium, but technically I'm in the sizing chart. I'm always on the border of sizes of between a medium and a large. Typically I go with a large. They sent a medium, not a big deal. Where they didn't skimp though is on the drivetrain. So it's running the XT 12-speed, and so you've got really reliable shifting, just a really solid drivetrain. So I mean, that's the basics of this bike. I really want to go ride it, so I think we should go. We're gonna go on a similar loop. Most of the bikes I've been testing or reviewing lately have been I've taken on this loop or one very similar. It's a really good area. You get double track, you get single track, you get rocky stuff, you get smooth stuff, you get some dirt road. So it's a good mix if you're wondering how it does in all sorts of different conditions. Anyway, let's go ride. Okay, I'm on the trail. I just realized I didn't even talk about the geometry. In rigid form, 67.5 degree head tube angle, 74.5 seat tube angle. Chainstay is adjustable from 450 to 465. So a little on the longer side, but not terribly long. Right now I have it in the shortest position. You can run 27.5 by 4.5 in the shortest position. Pretty cool. On a medium, the reach is 440 and the stack is 620. So those numbers seem a little older or a little outdated, but for a bike that you can take on adventures, things like that, that's pretty normal. A shorter reach, you don't want to be stretched out all day. That's not a terribly high stack, but it's also not short by any means. So yeah, I'm gonna keep riding. Like I said, I usually ride a large, and this is a medium, but I don't know. Maybe a medium is right. This feels, I don't know if I would want it any bigger. I've been riding the Jones LWB, and this is definitely a more traditional feeling bike. Feels good on the climbs. This also isn't necessarily bike specific related, but they did a good job on the gearing. And I think it's a 51 or 52 tooth, I can't remember. But then they have a 28 tooth chainring on the front, which sounds like overkill. It can fit much bigger. I think it can fit up to a 38. It's really good with 27.5 by 4.5 or 29 by 3. It's a good matchup. The tires are a lot bigger, and so the effective gears, even though it's, you know, it sounds really low, the effective gears are probably pretty close to most 29ers with, say, a 32 tooth chainring. A little downhill. This isn't the longest dropper out there, but again, size-wise, probably work well for people who fit better on this bike. Ooh, it's a little more playful than I was expecting right there. That little jump, sometimes it just feels really good. That's how this felt. Panorama is based in Canada, and actually that's the name of Torngat. It's like a mountain range there. Same with, they have a carbon version. It's called the Chick-Chocks. Another mountain range up there. And I guess I just really get along with Canadian brands. It's kind of funny, like RSD is up there as well. And I seem to just really relate to them somehow. Maybe it's also just a smaller manufacturer thing. I like the things that they do. So glad to be on another one. I decided since this is a Panorama, I should probably do some stuff that are more adventurous. So I've ridden this trail like once before. It's not like a, I don't know, legit trail? I don't know if that's the right word. It's obviously well traveled, but whew, it's a little more bushwhacky. This was a really easy to assemble bike. Came, you know, pretty much everything together. The handlebars off, fork on, front tire off. And that was, I mean, the main setup was just kind of throwing the front tire on, putting the handlebars on, and pulling the paper and stuff off. And then it was good to go. So if you're not super confident in being able to assemble your own bike, you can take it to a bike shop, but if you know how to change a flat tire, you can probably do this just fine. And you should know how to change a flat tire. Bike's really balanced. I feel comfortable. I mean, I've only gone like 2 miles, but I feel really comfortable. It doesn't feel super long. Steering's not like dead or vague. I'm a really big fan of the 67-ish head tube angle on fat bikes. Way better than something that's like 69 or 70. It's not as twitchy, and you don't feel as much like you're gonna go over the bars on steep stuff. But it's not so slack that they've had to do a bunch to keep it from being really vague at slow speeds or wandering a lot. This is where I get to start the downhill stuff. Nice. Very stable. It's not like I'm going that fast or there's anything technical, but it's, yeah, super stable feeling. Has a decently long wheelbase, but not too long. And again, the chainstays are in the shorter position. So if I want it to feel even more stable, I'd throw those back, get 15 extra millimeters on the chainstay, which doesn't sound like much, but I've got a video on that if you're interested in if adjustable chainstays make a difference. Check that one out. It actually feels fairly short, like the bike just moves really well under you. Maybe that is because it's a smaller size than normal, but I almost feel, this is gonna sound absolutely crazy, but that was like that BMX-y feel of like the bike just moves all over underneath you and you don't really have to do much. Yeah, obviously I'm not really riding in snow, but I feel like this is gonna be pretty good in the snow. More to that, if you've seen my fat bike spectrum that I've talked about, this falls, man, maybe smack dab in the middle. And depending on how you set it up, it can go either way, which is, you know, part of their philosophy, part of the reason they designed this the way that they did. This part's pretty twisty and bumpy. Really excited since winter is kind of holding off still. I'm probably gonna swap to the shorter spindle length and throw some 29 plus on it. If you're wanting to do that and you're currently riding a bike, one thing to note is this is 177 spacing. So like the Wojtek, and although I don't know if the Wojtek 2 is still 177, I'm guessing it is, but it's kind of a standard going away in the fat bike world. But Panorama, they sent me a wheel set to test out, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to, and that's something that I really wanted to do. Again, this could be a size thing. I'm feeling like I'm falling forward a little, so maybe that's what it is. Whew. But yeah, good ride. Normally I do this part at the end of the trail, but my SD card filled up and I had to run some errands really fast, so I'm doing it now. So overall, this bike was a little more fun than I thought it would be. With such a short reach, even on the large, I thought it was gonna be a little less playful, and on descents was gonna be a little bit harder to handle. Like I mentioned, it's not like it was terrible on the descents at all, by any means. It was really capable, really fun still. But there are still some other bikes that might outshine it. Again, though, it is with a rigid fork right now. So, gotta factor that in. I do kind of wish I had the large, just for this sake right here. You can see clearly, I mean, obviously it fits me fine, but a large would probably be a better fit, or at least a longer dropper would be better for me. I think though, as is, this bike is gonna be really good in the winter. In snow, it's gonna do really well. I'm actually gonna be using this bike in the Fat Pursuit. That's a bike, ski, or run, not sure how you do that, snow event in Island Park, Idaho in January. I'm not doing the 200K, the long one. That's like the really legit one. I just don't have time for that or to train or anything like that. So I am doing the 60K, which is still a decent ride, but that's gonna be on this bike. If anything, this ride really just kind of told me I'm excited to swap it out into like a summer mode and see how it does then. I feel like it's gonna be great in the snow and the slower speeds, the softer conditions, things like that. But I also want to know how it does in dirt, and when you have a 120 mil fork on it and 29 plus or some narrower fat tires. I want to see how that feels. I think my first step will probably be just swapping to a suspension fork first, because I just have the time right now. We don't really have a lot of snow, so I should be able to get some good dirt rides in still. One other thing I forgot to mention, and you can't even tell, that's how good and well done this is, but this actually splits right here if you want to run a belt drive. If that's something that you wanted to do, you have that option. You can really run this bike in a bajillion different ways, which is pretty cool. I'd encourage you to go to Panorama's website and check out this bike and go support them. Go check out what they've got. They also have some pretty cool other bikes, but I'll put a link in the description so you can go check it out. If there's anything I didn't cover in this video that you want to know more about, let me know. And I'll try to answer those in the comments or make sure that I address them in future videos. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.